Once upon a time in the vibrant village of Harmony Hill, there lived a young girl named Mora. Mora was known for her golden heart and her curiosity to help others. Her motto was every act of kindness, no matter how small, is worth a great treasure. She believed that kindness was a magical seed that could sprout happiness everywhere it was sown. One sunny morning, Mora woke up with a delightful idea. She wanted to spread kindness throughout the village and decided to start a project called Helping Hands. She hurried to her best friend Finn's house and shared her idea with him. Finn, a cheerful boy known for his creativity, loved the idea immediately. Together, they giggled and brainstormed about all the different ways they could help their neighbors. Their first stop was Mrs. Willow's garden. Mrs. Willow had a beautiful garden, but had struggled lately to keep up with its demands. Mora and Finn offered to pull weeds and plant new flowers. Instantly, Mrs. Willow's frown turned upside down, transforming into a bright, grateful smile. Next, the duo visited old Mr. Pine. Everyone knew him as the wisest man in the village, but also the grumpiest. Mora and Finn decided to surprise him by painting his old, weather-beaten fence. They worked tirelessly, splashing colors with laughter echoing in the air. When Mr. Pine saw his newly vibrant fence, even he couldn't resist a chuckle and a thank you. As the day unfolded, Mora and Finn's efforts did not go unnoticed. Soon, other children joined in, eager to be part of the Helping Hands project. They baked cookies for the fire station, created cards for the elderly at the old folks' home, and even performed a street play to spread joy and laughter. By sunset, the village of Harmony Hill was buzzing with delight, and Mora's heart warmed at the sight of everyone coming together. The joys of their tiny acts of kindness spread like wildfire, uniting the community like never before. From that day on, Mora and her helping hands taught the village a valuable lesson. Helping each other not only fills hearts with happiness, but also paints the world in colors of kindness and unity. And though Mora was just a young girl, her little acts of goodwill reminded everyone that we can all be a light in someone else's day. Once upon a time, in the heart of the great forest, there lived a bear named Bruno. Bruno was not like any other bear. He was curious and always eager to learn about the world beyond the trees and mountains that surrounded his home. One bright morning, as the sun peeked through the dense leaves, Bruno decided it was time for an adventure. He packed some of his favorite honey cakes and set off on a path he had never taken before. As Bruno walked, he hummed a happy tune, feeling the soft, mossy ground beneath his paws and smelling the fresh, crisp forest air. He soon reached a wide stream that sparkled under the sunlight. Not knowing how to swim, Bruno hesitated, but he remembered the wise old owl's advice. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Summoning his courage, Bruno carefully crossed the stream, hopping from stone to stone. On the other side, Bruno encountered an old turtle slowly making his way. The turtle was struggling with his heavy shell and could not keep up with the fast-moving stream. Bruno realized he could help and gently lifted the turtle to the safety of a nearby bog. Grateful, the turtle thanked Bruno and handed him a mysterious map. "Follow this," the turtle said. "It will lead you to a place where dreams come true." With the map carefully tucked in his pouch, Bruno continued his adventure, following the directions closely. Along the way, he met a rabbit who was in despair. The rabbit had lost his way home and was too frightened to explore further. Remembering his own fears earlier with the stream, Bruno decided to help. Together, They read the map and found the way to the rabbit's burrow. Overjoyed, the rabbit invited Bruno to stay for lunch as a thank you. As the day drew to a close, Bruno realized the true meaning of his adventure. It was not the unknown land he discovered or the map the turtle had given him. It was the friends he made and the courage he found within himself. Bruno returned to his home feeling more enriched and realized that every adventure brings lessons that are far more valuable than treasures. The moral of the story is that true adventures lie within us, and through helping others, we find our own strength and joy. Courage and friendship make every journey worthwhile. Bruno's big adventure taught him that sometimes helping others and facing your fears are the greatest adventures of all. In the heart of a little town lived a boy named Tommy, who wore glasses that seemed too big for his small face. Tommy was often found daydreaming, his mind painting pictures of great adventures while he swung on the old tire in his backyard. He was known among his friends for his optimistic outlook, even when things looked bleak. One chilly autumn afternoon, Tommy and his friends decided to build a tree house in the giant oak tree at the edge of the park. Their hearts brimmed with excitement, and their minds buzzed with ideas. But as hours turned into days, the project seemed more challenging than they'd imagined. The wood was heavy, and the nails hard to hammer and straight. Slowly, his friends' enthusiasm waned, leaving Tommy alone to work on their shared dream. Despite the setbacks, Tommy's spirit never faltered. Each day, he would return to the oak tree after school, hammer in hand, refusing to let go of their vision. Some of his friends began to tease him, calling him foolish for clinging to what they saw as a meaningless effort. One particularly gloomy afternoon, as Tommy was furiously trying to nail a piece of wood into place, an older man approached him. It was Mr. Bell, the town's retired carpenter. "Need some help, young man?" he asked kindly, noticing the frustration in Tommy's eyes. Tommy nodded, grateful for the offer. Together, they worked through the evening, the treehouse finally starting to take shape. As days went by, more townsfolk, inspired by Tommy's unwavering dedication, joined in. Mothers brought lemonade and sandwiches, while kids from the school came to lend a hand after classes. Suddenly, the project that had seemed impossible turned into the heartbeat of the community. When the treehouse was finally completed, it was more than just a structure of wood and nails. It stood as a testament to perseverance and the power of hope. Tommy had taught everyone a valuable lesson, that where there is hope, there is a way. From that day on, the treehouse became a sanctuary for laughter and imagination, a beacon built on the steadfast belief that despair should never be the end of a story. Even when it seems everything is against you, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, if only you keep striving for it. Once upon a time, in a lush green forest, there stood a magnificent tree. It was the tallest tree in the forest, with sprawling branches and verdant foliage that provided shade to those who sought solace under it. This tree was known as the arrogant tree because of its superior attitude towards other trees who were smaller in size and stature. One day, as the sun was setting, the arrogant tree began boasting to the trees nearby, saying, "Look at how tall and mighty I am. None of you can compare to me. My branches touch the sky, and my leaves whisper to the winds." The smaller trees, tired of the arrogant tree's constant bragging, decided to stay quiet, as they knew that it was wise to pick their battles. Meanwhile, the wise old oak that stood just a few feet away from the arrogant tree listened quietly, nodding as if in agreement. Many days passed, and the seasons began to change. Autumn came around, and with it, the winds began to blow strongly. The smaller trees swayed gently in the wind, bending as the mighty gusts rushed past them. The arrogant tree, however, stood rigid and firm, refusing to bow down. The oak, with a hint of wisdom tinged with empathy in its voice, spoke at last. There is strength in humility, my friend. Those who are too proud to bend might break when pushed beyond their limits. The arrogant tree scoffed, I am far too strong to break. As winter rolled in, a fierce storm brought with it howling winds and heavy snow. The smaller trees, with their smaller stature, bent low to let the storm pass. The wise oak did the same, protecting its roots by bowing to the force of nature. But the arrogant tree, in its stubbornness, stood firm. The storm raged on, and as the winds reached their peak, the arrogant tree, unable to withstand the force, began to crack. Its branches snapped, and with a mighty groan, it toppled over and crashed onto the forest floor. When the storm had passed, the smaller trees stood unscathed, and the wise oak remained untouched. They looked at where the arrogant tree once stood and mourned its downfall. The wise oak observed softly, let this be a lesson to you all that in life, sometimes strength comes from learning when to yield. And from that day on, the trees in the forest remembered the tale of the arrogant tree and lived their lives with humility and respect for nature's incredible power. Once upon a time in the land of Green Meadow lived a young turtle named Timmy. Timmy was not an ordinary turtle. He had colorful spots on his shell and a heart full of dreams. He lived with his family in a cozy little pond. Timmy loved to explore, learn, and play with his friends. But he had one concern. He was the slowest of them all. His friends, including Rita the rabbit and Benny the bird, would race around, leaving Timmy far behind. Though they never made fun of him, Timmy often felt left out. One sunny morning, as Timmy basked on a rock, Grandfather Turtle noticed his grandson looking glum. Why the long-faced Timmy? Asked Grandfather with a kindly smile. Oh, Grandfather, sighed Timmy. I wish I was faster like Rita or Benny, so I could keep up with everyone during our adventures. Grandfather Turtle, wise and patient, thought for a moment and then said, Timmy, each of us is born with unique gifts. You might be slow, but you have a kind heart and determination, which are far more important. Believe in yourself, and you will go farther than you think. With those encouraging words echoing in his mind, Timmy decided to join a race organized in Green Meadow that evening. He knew he wouldn't be the fastest, but he wanted to try and prove that he was capable in his own special way. The race began, and Rita, Benny, and all the other animals zoomed ahead. Timmy took a deep breath, reminding himself of Grandfather's advice, and slowly but steadily plodded along the path. As the race unfolded, the sun began to set, casting golden hues over the meadow. Timmy kept his eyes on the path and his heart full of hope. Halfway through, some animals grew tired and stopped to rest. Rita, known for her speed, decided to nap under a shady tree. Benny, drawn by the sparkles of a nearby creek, paused to quench his thirst. Yet there was Timmy, slowly and surely making his way forward, never stopping, never straying. With every step, he remembered Grandfather Turtle's words, believe in yourself. Timmy finally reached the finish line just as the stars started to twinkle in the sky. To his amazement, he discovered he was one of the few who finished the race. His friends cheered, realizing the strength that lay in Timmy's perseverance and belief in himself. From that day forward, Timmy no longer worried about being the slowest. Instead, he embraced his unique pace and his ability to remain dedicated and true to himself. Through his journey, everyone in Green Meadow learned a vital lesson. Believing in oneself can lead to the most unexpected and delightful victories. And so, Timmy the Turtle became a small hero with a big heart in the stories of Green Meadow. Once upon a time, in the lush green forest of Wobbly Woods, there was a lively little rabbit named Remy. Remy was known far and wide for his curiosity and speed, hopping here and there, always looking for a new adventure. He had fluffy white fur and big, bright eyes that seemed to sparkle under the sun. One sunny morning, as Remy bounded through the forest, he stumbled upon a wise old owl named Olive perched high in a tree. Olive had seen many things in her time and was known for her thoughtful warnings and advice. "Hello, Olive," chirped Remy. "What wise words do you have for me today?" Olive blinked her large eyes and replied, "Dear Remy, it is a wonderful thing to make friends. But remember, in your young heart, you must tread carefully and not trust too easily." Remy, with his boundless energy and enthusiasm, nodded but didn't think much of it. Later that day, as Remy was napping under the shade of a giant oak tree, a sly fox named Felix approached him. Felix had a reputation in the forest for being mischievous, but his slick words often beguiled the other animals. "Why, hello there, Remy," Felix said smoothly. "I heard there is a secret carrot garden near the edge of the forest. Would you like to come with me to find it?" Remy, remembering Allah's advice, was hesitant, but the thought of a secret garden full of crunchy carrots was just too tempting. After a moment's pause, he decided to follow Felix, justifying to himself that it wouldn't hurt to have a little peek. As they hopped and trekked together through the woods, Remy started to feel uneasy. He noticed that the trees were getting denser, and they seemed to be moving away from the familiar paths of the forest. Just as Felix suggested they take a narrow and dark trail, Remy's little heart began to thump loudly. Trusting his instincts, he stopped. "Felix," he said firmly, "I think I'd like to go back now." Felix tried to persuade him, but Remy was resolute. Seeing that he couldn't trick Remy any longer, Felix made an excuse and slinked away into the shadows. With a sigh of relief, Remy turned around and made his way back home, sticking to the sunlit parts of the forest. That evening, as he retold his adventure to Olive, the wise old owl nodded approvingly. "You did well, Remy," she said. "It's good to be nice to everyone. But remember, not everyone has your best interest at heart." From that day on, Remy became known not only for his speed and curiosity, but also for his wisdom and cautious heart, understanding the importance of being careful about who to trust. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills and lush green forests, there lived a little squirrel named Nutty. Nutty was a playful and curious squirrel who loved spending his days frolicking about in the trees and chasing after butterflies. He had a habit of lazing around and often lost track of time. One sunny day, while munching on an acorn, Nutty overheard two old turtles, Tim and Tom, having a conversation by the pond. "The days are getting shorter," said Tim in a wise tone. "Yes, winter is coming. We must prepare," replied Tom. This caught Nutty's attention. "What's the hurry?" thought Nutty. "There's plenty of time to play before winter arrives." He shrugged his fluffy tail and scampered off to find more butterflies. As days turned into weeks, the air began to cool and the leaves danced to the ground, donning bright shades of orange and red. Nutty, still caught up in his games, hadn't noticed how quickly the days were passing. Until one day, Nutty woke up to find the first snowflakes of winter gently covering the forest floor. Panicking, he quickly scurried to check his acorn stash, only to find it scarce, and his little belly growled in hunger. Desperate, Nutty went to seek help from his friends in the forest. He first visited Bella, the wise owl. "Oh dear Nutty," she hooted, "you must understand the value of time. While you were playing, others were preparing." Realizing his mistake, Nutty nodded solemnly and went next to see Tim and Tom. Despite their slow movement, the turtles had stored plenty of food. They kindly offered to share some with Nutty. Once upon a time, in a quaint little village named Willowbrook, there lived a curious little girl named Margo. Margo had sparkly blue eyes and curly brown hair that danced in the wind whenever she ran. She adored exploring and had a boundless imagination that took her to magical places. But what she loved most in the world was her best friend, Ducky. Ducky wasn't an ordinary duck. He was bright yellow with an unusually long bill and waddled about with a sense of purpose. He was a mechanical duck, crafted by Margot's inventive mom using recycled bits and pieces found around the village. Ducky had a tiny computer inside that made him capable of fun tricks like spinning around, quacking on command, and even waddling in a zigzag to make Margo giggle. Ducky had a special number engraved on his side: 993-3000. To Margo, it was just as remarkable as he was. Every day after school, Margo would rush home, grab a basket filled with delectable crumbs, and set off on adventures with her feathered friend. They'd race across freckled fields, dive into piles of crispy, fallen leaves, and build mystical sandcastles by the bubbling brook. Ducky's favorite adventure was when they would climb Willow Hill, where he would quack appreciatively at the beautiful view of the village below. One sunny afternoon, as they explored the edge of the mysterious enchanted forest, Margo noticed a glimmer. There, nestled amidst the undergrowth, was an old, rusty key. Intrigued, Margo picked it up, and together with Ducky, they went on a mission to discover what it could unlock. Days turned into a journey of finding hidden doors, secret boxes, and talking to the wise old villagers. With each new lead, Margot's excitement grew. Finally, old Mrs. Pettigrew, who had a twinkle in her eye and a wealth of stories, directed them to an ancient oak tree known for its enormous, gnarled roots. At its base was a lock that matched the key. With a little twist and a click, the door opened to reveal a tiny room full of mysterious maps and sparkling artifacts from long ago. Margot's eyes widened with delight. Ducky quacked in awe at the treasures that awaited them. Together, they realized they had found an adventure that was just the beginning of many more. From that day forth, the tales of Margo, Ducky, and the number 993-3000 were told through generations in Willowbrook, inspiring countless adventures to come.